Today we're visiting Tearfund, one of the DEC member agencies, and they took us to a district called Tearfund, which was only 40 kilometers from Kathmandu, but with the road conditions and off-road and traffic, it took over 4 hours to get there. It just shows how difficult the terrain is here in Kathmandu after the earthquake and in Nepal in general. But we're really excited to see a new temporary learning centre that children were able to carry on with their education. We also visited the old school building, which sadly had been condemned because of the cracks and how dangerous it is now for those children. There is hope, of course, that that school will be rebuilt in good time so that the children will carry on their education in a much better surrounding than the temporary learning centre. The communities are also very busy rebuilding their homes. We saw huge amounts of corrugated sheets being given to families, to women, to elderly folk. And what was really sad to see is how they had no choice but to carry these very heavy corrugated sheets on their backs and on their heads, sometimes ladies with carrying children on their backs, up very steep hills. But that's the necessity they have to do in order to get those materials to their remote villages in order to rebuild their homes. And then we moved on to see a lady that showed us a hygiene kit that she'd received from Tearfund and how essential that was to keep her and her family clean and healthy and to prevent any diseases. We then moved on to talk to the local water and sanitation committee, and they explained to us how the partnership between that committee, made up of local citizens, and the local partnership for Tearfund, and indeed government, were working together to identify a new water source. Sadly, their old water source had been broken down and now is contaminated, so they're unable to use it. And one lady from that village explained how she had to walk for an hour downstream in order to collect what was dirty water from the stream, and then on her back carry 16 litres of heavy water in order to take that back to the family for washing and for drinking. Children were obviously being sick, and they had no choice but to use that water. Now they're working really fast and really hard to try to do the surveys, put in the water pipes and get agreements from various local villages so that they can get a new water source which will keep everybody happy and healthy. We've travelled quite a distance to Sindulpulchuk, to Tearfund today and many other parts. What has actually stood out in my mind was the difficult terrain and how awful those road conditions are. The monsoon, thankfully, hasn't been as bad as expected, but even so, getting around is absolutely astronomical. It's so difficult. People will drive around for 1 hour and then the roads will be inaccessible, and it'll be a 3 or 4 hour trek to get to those villages. Now you can imagine individuals, families, ladies, gents, all trying to carry materials to 3 or 4 hour remote villages on their backs because they'd have no access to any other vehicles. That's the reality of trying to deliver aid in Nepal at the moment. But we would hope that when the monsoon clears up, that we would be able to access even more remote villages and deliver more aid to those people that need it most.